It was the perfect viral story. Scientists confirm octopuses are aliens, but here is where we have to slam on the brakes. Because as romantic and exciting as that idea is, the actual scientific community tore this paper apart. Virologists and evolutionary biologists pointed out that the paper was purely speculative. There was zero physical evidence, no alien DNA, no non-terrestrial proteins. It was a fantasy built on a misunderstanding of how evolution works. Because the truth is, we don't need aliens to explain the octopus. We just need to look at the fossil record. The panspermia paper claimed the octopus appeared suddenly out of nowhere. That is simply false. We have a fossil record that traces their lineage back to the Cambrian era. The ancestors of the octopus weren't aliens. They were shelled mollusks, similar to the modern nautilus. For millions of years, they ruled the seas in hard, heavy shells. But then, the ocean became a dangerous place. A new type of predator arrived: jawed fish. These fish were fast, and they could crush shells. The ancestors of the octopus faced an ultimatum: adapt or die. So they did something radical. They abandoned the shell. This was the turning point. By losing their heavy armor, they gained speed and agility. But they became a delicious, soft protein snack for everything in the ocean. This extreme vulnerability is what drove their evolution. To survive without a shell, they had to become invisible, hence the camouflage. They had to be able to escape, hence the jet propulsion and ink. And to manage all these complex new tools, they needed a massive upgrade in processing power. Their intelligence wasn't a gift from the stars. It was a desperate survival strategy developed right here on Earth. We even have the smoking gun in the genetics. While the octopus genome is massive, it doesn't contain alien code. It contains earthly genes that have been put in a blender. Evolution took standard mollusk genes and rearranged them in chaotic, innovative ways to create new functions. And the coolest part? They developed a trick called RNA editing. Instead of just following their DNA blueprint, octopuses can edit the messages sent to their cells, allowing them to tweak their own biology on the fly to adapt to temperature changes. It's not alien magic, it's just incredibly advanced, high-stakes evolution. So, the verdict is in. Octopuses are not aliens. They are 100% Earthlings. But does that make them any less special? I'd argue it makes them even more incredible, because here is the real mind-bender. The octopus is the closest thing to an alien intelligence we will ever meet. Our last common ancestor with the octopus was a flatworm that lived 600 million years ago. Since then, our lines have been completely separate. We built intelligence using a spine and a central brain. The octopus built intelligence using a soft body and a distributed network. It is a completely independent experiment in consciousness. It proves that intelligence doesn't have to look like us or think like us to be real. When you look at an octopus, you aren't looking at a visitor from space. You are looking at an alternate timeline of life on Earth. A reminder of just how creative and bizarre nature can be without ever leaving the planet. And honestly, that is way cooler than a frozen egg on a meteor. Imagine standing on the edge of a coastline. You expect the cool, calming blues of the ocean, or the deep greens of a river, but instead you are staring into a thick, opaque abyss of blood. This isn't a special effect. It isn't a scene from a horror movie. This is Lake Urmia, Iran, and it looks like the Earth itself has been wounded. For centuries, human civilization has had a deep, primal fear of water turning red. It is the ultimate bad omen. The Book of Revelation warns us of the second angel pouring his bowl into the sea, turning it to blood as of a dead man. In Exodus, the Nile turns to blood, killing the fish and breaking the spirit of an empire. These aren't just stories. They are warning signals wired into our collective DNA. Water is life. When water turns to blood, it means the system is broken. It means death. So when satellite imagery began beaming back photos of the Middle East's largest lake transforming from a sparkling turquoise jewel into a terrifying crimson stain, the world didn't just see a color change, we saw a prophecy. We saw the end times. But here is the twist. The reason this water looks like a biblical plague is actually stranger, and perhaps even more terrifying than ancient scripture. Today, we are going to dive into that red water. We are going to separate the apocalypse from the algae and uncover why this blood-red lake isn't just a freak of nature, but a desperate warning sign that we are ignoring at our own peril. To understand the horror of what Lake Urmia has become, you have to understand the paradise that was lost. We aren't talking about a stagnant pond. For thousands of years, Urmia was a titan. Nestled in the mountains of northwest Iran, it was a colossal expanse of azure water covering over 5,000 square kilometers. That is massive enough to create its own weather patterns. It was a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve, a pulsating heart of biodiversity in an arid region. Imagine the sound. The air wasn't silent. It was deafening with the beat of wings. Flamingos, pelicans, white storks. Tens of thousands of migratory birds treated this lake as a critical refueling station. Beneath the surface, the water was teeming with Artemia urmiana, a unique species of brine shrimp that served as the engine for this entire food web. Local communities built their lives around these shores. They bathed in the therapeutic, salty waters. They farmed the fertile lands. The lake wasn't just geography. It was an identity. But then the silence set in. Starting in the late 90s, the jewel began to crack. NASA satellites watched from space as the blue footprint of the lake began to recede, year after agonizing year. Dams choked off the rivers that fed it. Illegal wells sucked the groundwater dry. A changing climate turned up the heat. The lake was being strangled. It lost 70% of its volume. What was once a sea became a salt flat. And as the water vanished, something darker took its place. When the red color first appeared, the immediate assumption was industrial catastrophe. Had a factory dumped chemicals? Was this a massive oil spill? It's a logical guess. We've treated our waterways as trash cans for centuries, but the forensic evidence didn't match. A chemical spill moves in a plume, concentrated at the source, fading as it spreads. But this was uniform. The entire remaining body of water had shifted spectrums simultaneously. It wasn't a murky, toxic brown. It was a rich, vibrant, organic red. So was it the ground? Was the shrinking lake churning up red clay or iron-rich sediment from the bottom? Again, close, but no cigar. Sediment is passive. It just floats there. But this color was dynamic. It followed a rhythm. In the spring, when the snow melted and fresh water rushed in, the lake would turn green or blue. But as the heat of summer hammered down, turning the remaining water into a hypersaline cauldron, the red would return. This wasn't mud. This was alive. The culprit isn't a demon. It is a survivor. Meet Dunaliella salina. Under a microscope, this single-celled algae is usually green. It's a plant-like organism that loves the sun. But Lake Urmia isn't a normal environment anymore. As the water evaporates, the salt concentration skyrockets. It becomes a brine so intense it would pickle most living things instantly. The sun beats down through the shallow water with punishing UV radiation. Any other organism would die. But Dunaliella salina, it puts on armor. To survive the solar radiation and the crushing salt pressure, the algae undergoes a chemical metamorphosis. It begins pumping out massive amounts of beta-carotene. Yes, the same pigment that makes carrots orange. But in these densities, it acts as a cellular sunscreen. It wraps the algae's internal machinery in a protective red shield. And it's not alone. It's joined by an ancient family of bacteria called Halobacteriaceae. These are extremophiles, organisms that are addicted to salt. They don't just tolerate the brine, they thrive in it. They use a red pigment called bacteriorhodopsin to absorb energy from the sun. So what you are seeing, that terrifying blood-red water, is actually a microscopic, desperate measure. It is trillions upon trillions of tiny organisms deploying their emergency shields simultaneously. It is the visible color of biological stress on a massive scale. And while Urmia is the current poster child for this phenomenon, it is not an isolated incident. Nature has a way of repeating its patterns. In Australia, Lake Hillier stays a permanent, bubblegum pink year-round due to the same microbial cocktail. In Senegal, Lake Retba turns into a strawberry milkshake that is so salty you float on the surface like a cork. Even in Antarctica, the blood falls pour rusted, iron-rich water out of a glacier like a bleeding wound. But here is the sobering reality we have to face. When we look at Lake Urmia, we shouldn't just be marveling at the cool science of extremophiles. We should be terrified by what triggered them. The lake didn't turn red because it wanted to. It turned red because it is dying. The transition from blue to red is the ecosystem's final gasp. It signals that the water has become so toxic, so salty, and so shallow that the complex web of life, the fish, the birds, the people, can no longer survive there. Only the extremophiles are left. The red water is a flag of surrender. So we return to our original question. Is this lake's blood-red water a sign of the apocalypse?